It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her.
Just when we thought the royal family had finally found its footing, Prince William does the unthinkable. He kicked Queen Camilla out of his mother, Princess Diana's award ceremony. That's right. The future King of England has reportedly made it crystal clear. Camilla is not welcome at this year's Diana Legacy Gala, the very event that honors his late mother's humanitarian work. And this wasn't a quiet, behind-the-scenes decision. No, this was bold, public, and unmistakable. The Queen is furious. Palace aides are scrambling, and royal watchers are stunned. Because let's be honest, this wasn't just a scheduling change. This was a statement. Was this Prince William finally taking a stand for his mother's memory? Was it revenge? A warning? Or something even bigger? A quiet power move that signals a new era inside the monarchy? Well, stay tuned, because what you're about to hear might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about William, Camilla, and the future of the crown. Prince William's royal revolution. Prince William just drew a line in the sand that nobody saw coming. He's effectively banished Queen Camilla from the one place that should have been neutral ground, Princess Diana's charity legacy. The future King of England has spoken, and his message? Crystal clear. Some wounds never heal. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, and some ghosts refuse to rest. This isn't just a family drama. This is a calculated move sending shockwaves through every corridor of Buckingham Palace. The crown is cracking. Ancient alliances are shattering. And at the center stands a son who's waited 27 years for this moment. Why now? After decades of carefully choreographed family appearances, forced smiles, and diplomatic silences, why has William chosen this moment to strike? The timing isn't random. Nothing in the royal world ever is. This is chess, not checkers. And William just made a move that changes everything. For years, we've watched this delicate dance. Camilla slowly integrated into family. William maintained perfect composure. Everyone pretended the past was buried with Diana in that Paris tunnel. But something shifted. Something fundamental changed in the power dynamics of the British monarchy. And suddenly, the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin has become a man with the power to rewrite royal history. This isn't about a single charity event. This is about legacy, power, and a reckoning nearly 3 decades in the making. What you're about to discover goes beyond palace gossip. This is a story of how grief transforms into power, how memory becomes weapon, and how one man's quest to honor his mother might just revolutionize the British monarchy forever. The making of a revolutionary. Picture a 15-year-old boy. It's September 6, 1997. The world is watching as he walks behind a coffin, trying desperately not to cry. Every camera in existence is pointed at his face, searching for cracks in composure he's been trained since birth to maintain. That boy was Prince William, and in that moment, something inside him crystallized harder than diamonds. The palace wanted him to grieve quietly, properly, the way royals had always grieved, behind closed doors, with stiff upper lips and scheduled appearances. But William's grief was different. It had teeth, it had memory, and most dangerously, it had patience. Fast forward through the years. Watch him at every royal gathering. See how his eyes harden just slightly when Camilla enters the room. Notice how his jaw clenches during speeches about family unity. Observe the micro-expressions that royal training can't quite suppress. The picture of filial duty. He even defended her publicly when the press got too vicious. But underneath was a different story. Sources who've known William since childhood paint a portrait of calculated patience. One former aide, speaking on condition of anonymity, revealed, William has his mother's heart, but his grandmother's strategic mind. He learned from the Queen that timing is everything in monarchy. You don't strike when you're angry. You strike when you're ready. And after 27 years, William was finally ready. The secret preparations, the groundwork for this royal revolution didn't begin last week or even last year. According to palace insiders, William has been methodically preparing for this moment since the day the BBC scandal about Diana's interview broke in 2021. That revelation that his mother had been manipulated, lied to, tricked into her most vulnerable moment being broadcast to millions, reignited a fury that had been simmering for decades. But William didn't explode. That's not the Windsor way. Instead, he began a careful campaign of what one source calls strategic positioning. First came the subtle changes. The Diana Award Committee suddenly had new members, all personally vetted by William. The event planning shifted from general palace staff to William's hand-picked team. Small details that meant nothing to outsiders, but everything to those who understand palace protocol. Then came the documentary. William's unprecedented decision to speak publicly about his mother's manipulation by the media wasn't just about settling scores with the BBC. It was about establishing himself as Diana's ultimate defender, the guardian of her legacy, the one person with both the moral authority and the institutional power to decide how she would be remembered. A royal historian who studied the family for 3 decades explains, what William understood that others missed is that moral authority trumps traditional hierarchy in the modern age. By positioning himself as Diana's protector, he gave himself powers that even being heir to the throne couldn't provide. Behind closed doors, William was building something unprecedented. A shadow network of Diana loyalists within the palace structure, staff members who'd serve his mother, charities she'd supported, friends who remained faithful to her memory. One by one, they were brought into William's confidence. It was like watching someone build an army, recalls a palace insider. Not with soldiers, but with memories, with loyalty, with people who believed Diana deserved better than what she got. The Diana Award battlefield. The Diana Award isn't just another royal charity. For William, it's sacred ground, holy territory, the one pure thing left of his mother's legacy that hasn't been touched by scandal or rewritten by time. Every year, young people who embody Diana's values, compassion, service, the courage to challenge the status quo, are recognized. These aren't aristocrats or celebrities. They're teenagers who started anti-bullying campaigns, created mental health support networks, or fought for environmental justice. In other words, they're everything Diana believed the monarchy should inspire. The 25th anniversary of the award should have been a celebration, a moment of unity, a chance for the royal family to come together in honoring Diana's memory. Should have been 3 weeks before the ceremony. William made his move, not with dramatic declarations or leaked statements to the press. That would have been too obvious, too vulnerable to counterattack. Instead, he used the most powerful weapon in the royal arsenal, bureaucracy. The guest list, traditionally a formality rubber-stamped by various palace offices, suddenly became classified. William's personal team took over every aspect of planning. Invitations were hand-delivered by trusted couriers. The usual protocols were mysteriously updated. And then the masterstroke. Camilla's invitation simply didn't exist. Not rejected, not withdrawn. It was as if she'd been erased from the very concept of the event. A senior palace aide who witnessed the planning describes it as surgical precision meets psychological warfare. William had created a situation where Camilla couldn't complain without seeming petty, couldn't force her way in without appearing desperate, and couldn't ignore it without seeming weak. He boxed her in completely. The aide continues. Every move she could make would be wrong. It was brilliant and absolutely ruthless. The Queen's fury unleashed when Camilla discovered her exclusion, not through official channels, but through whispered warnings from sympathetic staff. The carefully maintained facade of royal harmony shattered like a champagne flute hitting marble. Multiple sources describe a scene of barely controlled fury. Camilla, who'd spent 2 decades perfecting her image as a dignified, patient, understanding wife, suddenly faced a crisis that threatened everything she'd built. The confrontation with William happened behind doors so thick that secrets themselves couldn't escape. But palace staff members, the invisible army that keeps the monarchy functioning, have their ways of knowing things. You could feel it through the walls. One longtime employee reveals, That kind of anger has a presence. It changes the air pressure. Everyone was finding urgent business in other parts of the palace. What was said in that room remains known only to William and Camilla, but the aftermath was visible to everyone. William emerged calm, almost serene. Camilla? She canceled her next 3 public appearances, citing a minor indisposition. Royal watchers know the code. Indisposition in palace speak means someone is too furious to trust themselves in public. But here's where William's genius truly shone. He'd chosen his battlefield perfectly. The Diana Award was untouchable. To fight for inclusion would mean fighting against Diana's memory itself. Camilla, the woman who'd been painted as the other woman for decades, couldn't win that battle in the court of public opinion. She was trapped, and they both knew it. The brothers' secret alliance. Here's where our story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Prince Harry. Yes, the same Prince Harry who's been estranged from William, who wrote a tell-all book, who moved to California and seemingly burned every royal bridge, wasn't on it. Sources from both camps confirmed that in the weeks leading up to Camilla's exclusion, encrypted communications between the brothers increased dramatically. Late-night calls when Montecito was awake and London should have been sleeping. Coded messages to intermediaries they trusted since childhood. The brothers who couldn't agree on anything, not on Meghan, not on duty, not on the future of the monarchy, found common ground in protecting their mother's memory. Diana's boys will always be Diana's boys when it comes to her. Explain someone who's known both princes since they were children. Everything else, they'll fight about. But someone threatening their mother's legacy, that's the one thing that could unite them. Harry's role was subtle but crucial. From California, he began his own campaign, giving interviews that seemingly randomly mention his mother's charity work. Social media posts celebrating the Diana Award, creating public pressure that made William's private maneuvering even more effective. It was a coordinated attack from both sides of the Atlantic, and Camilla never saw it coming. One palace insider puts it starkly. For the first time in years, maybe decades, the boys were working together, not as heir and spare, not as feuding brothers, but as Diana's sons. And that's a force more powerful than any crown. The constitutional crisis. What William has done goes beyond family drama. Constitutional experts are quietly freaking out about the precedent this sets. The British monarchy operates on unwritten rules, ancient protocols, and the assumption that everyone will play their assigned role. William just took those rules and set them on fire by excluding the Queen Consort from a royal charity event. Not just any event, but one bearing his mother's name. William has essentially created a parallel power structure within the monarchy. He's saying that the future king's personal feelings can override the current king's wife's position. Dr. Margaret Whitfield, professor of constitutional monarchy studies at Oxford, explains the earthquake this represents. In mathematical terms, William has proven that emotional authority can be greater than positional authority. That's never been done before. Not like this. The implications are staggering. If William can exclude Camilla from Diana-related events, what else can he do? Can he bar her from other charities? From state occasions? From her own coronation as queen? He's created a precedent that says the heir's personal boundaries supersede royal protocol. Dr. Whitfield continues. That's not just revolutionary. It's potentially destructive to the entire system. But here's the thing. William knows this. He's counting on it. Sources close to the prince reveal he's been studying constitutional law with the intensity of someone preparing for bar exams. He understands exactly what precedents he's setting, and he's setting them deliberately. Charles, the king in the middle. Picture King Charles III right now. 75 years old. Waited his entire life to be king. Finally got the crown. And now he's caught in an impossible position between his wife and his son. The man who once told Camilla he wanted to be reincarnated as her tampon. Yes, that actually happened. Now has to choose between the love of his life and the heir to his throne. It's the kind of choice that ages you a decade overnight. Palace sources describe a king visibly torn apart by the situation. Charles, who's always been more emotional than his mother, more human than the institution traditionally allows, finds himself paralyzed by conflicting loyalties. Support Camilla and risk open warfare with William, who commands enormous public sympathy as Diana's son, abandon Camilla, and destroy his own marriage while proving every critic right who said he never truly loved her. Charles is trapped in a hell of his own making, observes a royal biographer who's followed his story for 40 years. Every choice he makes is wrong. Every path leads to pain. It's almost Shakespearean in its tragedy. The king has tried private negotiations, pleading with William to reconsider, appealing to his sense of duty, to family unity, to the stability of the crown. But William, sources say, remains unmovable. He's polite, respectful. He calls Charles Pa and speaks softly, reveals someone present at these discussions. But behind that politeness is steel. Charles knows he's already lost. He's just trying to minimize the damage. Meanwhile, Charles is aging before the court's eyes. The stress shows in deeper lines, grayer hair, a stoop that wasn't there 6 months ago. The crown he waited 70 years to wear now feels heavier than centuries. The public explosion. When news of Camilla's exclusion leaked, and in the palace, everything eventually leaked. Social media went absolutely nuclear. Hashtag Justice for Diana started trending within minutes. Hashtag William knows followed close behind. But the real indication of public sentiment came from an unexpected source. The Diana Award recipients themselves. These young people, selected for their compassion and leadership, began posting messages of support for William. Not organized, not orchestrated, just genuine appreciation for someone protecting the integrity of Diana's legacy. One recipient, a 17-year-old who'd started a mental health charity after losing a friend to suicide, posted, "Princess Diana's award should honor Princess Diana's values. Full stop. Thank you, Prince William, for keeping it pure." That post, shared over 1 million times in 24 hours. The generational divide was sharp as a blade. Older royalists, raised on ideas of deference and protocol, worried about the precedent. But younger people, they saw a son protecting his mother's memory and loved him for it. British newspapers, usually careful about taking sides in royal disputes, found themselves in an impossible position: support tradition and risk looking out of touch, or support William and risk accusations of undermining the current king. The Telegraph tried to play both sides. The Daily Mail went full Team William. The Guardian questioned whether the monarchy was finally eating itself. And the Sun? They just posted pictures of Diana and let readers draw their own conclusions. But perhaps the most telling response came from ordinary Brits. In online polls, support for William's decision consistently topped 70%. The message was clear: Diana still matters. Her memory still resonates. And her son's protection of that memory strikes a chord deeper than any protocol. The hidden casualties. While the world focused on the William-Camilla showdown, other members of the royal family found themselves caught in the crossfire. Princess Anne, typically neutral in family disputes, faced an impossible choice: support her brother Charles and risk alienating her nephew, or side with William and essentially declare war on the current queen. Sources say Anne chose a third path: strategic silence. She attended neither planning meetings nor the event itself, citing prior commitments that nobody quite believed existed. But the real casualties might be the younger royals. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are old enough to sense the tension, to notice that Granny Camilla isn't at certain events, to wonder why Daddy seems so intense when Grandpa visits. William's protecting Diana's memory, but at what cost to his children's family relationships? Ask a child psychologist who specializes in high-profile families. They're learning that love and loyalty can be weapons. That's a heavy lesson for young minds. Meanwhile, the working royals who depend on palace harmony for their positions are panicking. If William can exclude the queen consort, what does that mean for their own futures? The ecosystem of royal patronages, appearances, and carefully balanced duties suddenly seems fragile as spun glass. One working royal, speaking through intermediaries, expressed the fear gripping the extended family. If bloodline battles override protocol, where does that leave those of us who've given our lives to service? Are we all expendable in William's new world order? The revolutionary's endgame. But here's the thing everyone's missing while they focus on the drama. William isn't acting on emotion. This is strategy. Cold, calculated, long-term strategy that would make Machiavelli proud. By establishing himself as the guardian of Diana's legacy, William is doing more than settling old scores. He's positioning himself as a different kind of future king. One who puts authenticity over protocol, who chooses emotional truth over institutional convenience, who demonstrates that the monarchy can evolve beyond its hidebound traditions. William understands something his father never has, explains a political strategist who's advised several European royal houses. In the 21st century, moral authority matters more than hereditary authority. By standing for his mother, he's standing for everyone who's ever been wronged by powerful institutions. This isn't just about Camilla. She's collateral damage in a much larger war. William is fighting for the soul of the monarchy itself. Will it be an institution that admits its mistakes, honors its victims, and evolves with the times? Or will it remain trapped in traditions that no longer serve its people? Every move William makes builds toward a singular vision, a monarchy reborn. Smaller, yes. More exclusive, certainly. But also more authentic, more connected to real values, more worthy of the loyalty it demands. The Diana Award exclusion? That's just the opening gambit. Sources suggest William has plans for every charity his mother touched, every cause she championed. He's creating a parallel power structure based on moral authority, rather than traditional hierarchy. He's building a kingdom within a kingdom, one insider reveals. And when he becomes king, that shadow kingdom becomes a real one. Camilla knows this. Charles knows this. They're not just fighting about a charity event. They're fighting about the future of the British throne. The documentary bombshell. Just when the palace thought they had the situation contained, another explosion. William has commissioned a documentary. Not just any documentary. A comprehensive examination of Diana's charity work, featuring never-before-seen footage and interviews with people who stayed silent for decades. The documentary, sources reveal, will premiere on the 30th anniversary of Diana's death. And Camilla, notably absent from every frame, every interview, every mention. But here's the nuclear detail. The documentary includes interviews with palace staff from the 1980s and 1990s. People who saw everything, who know where the bodies are buried, metaphorically speaking, who've been waiting 30 years to tell their truth. William's given them permission to speak, explains a documentary insider. More than permission, protection. He's essentially saying, tell the truth about my mother, and I'll ensure you're safe from palace retaliation. The implications are staggering. These are people who witnessed Diana's tears, who saw the loneliness, who watched as she was systematically frozen out by the same institution, now scrambling to contain William's rebellion. One former palace employee, speaking ahead of the documentary's release, offers a preview. Public thinks they know Diana's story. They don't. Not really. What we lived through, what we saw, it was worse than anyone imagined. And now, finally we can tell it. Camilla's camp is reportedly in full panic mode. Lawyers have been consulted, strategies discussed. But how do you fight the truth when it's backed by the future king? The next phase. As we record this, the palace is in chaos. Emergency meetings stretch through the night. Constitutional lawyers burn midnight oil. The machinery of monarchy groans under the strain of an unprecedented crisis. But William is calm, serene, even because he knows what others are only beginning to understand. This is just the beginning. Phase 2 of his plan reportedly involves a complete restructuring of royal patronages. Every organization Diana supported will be evaluated. Those deemed worthy will remain under royal protection. Others? They'll find themselves mysteriously dropped from royal calendars. The criteria for worthiness. Sources say it comes down to a simple question. Did you honor Diana's memory, or did you let it be forgotten? Phase 3 is even more ambitious. William plans to create what insiders call the Diana Doctrine, a set of principles that will govern how the monarchy operates when he's king. Transparency over secrecy, authenticity over protocol, service over ceremony. He's not trying to destroy the monarchy, explains a source close to William's inner circle. He's trying to save it. He believes the institution killed his mother by being too rigid, too cruel, too focused on appearance over reality. He won't let that happen again. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of William's plan is what he calls the reckoning, a formal acknowledgement by the monarchy of its failures, not just with Diana, but throughout its modern history, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the British Crown. Camilla, sources say, features prominently in this reckoning. Not as a villain. William is too sophisticated for such simplicity, but as a symbol of an institution that prioritized the desires of powerful men over the well-being of vulnerable women. The People's Prince. What makes William's revolution so powerful isn't just his position or his planning. It's that he's tapped into something deep in the British psyche. The unfinished grief over Diana, the sense that justice was never served, the feeling that the monarchy chose propriety over truth. A recent poll shows 73% of Britons support modernizing the monarchy. When asked what modernization means, the top answer was telling: honoring Diana's legacy. 27 years after her death, Diana remains the people's princess, and now her son has positioned himself as the people's prince, the one who remembers, the one who cares, the one who'll make things right. William understands something fundamental, observes a professor of British social dynamics. Diana's death was a national trauma that never properly healed. By reopening that wound to clean it properly, he's not just serving his own need for justice, he's serving the nation's need for closure. This connection to public sentiment gives William power that goes beyond any constitutional position. He's not just the heir to the throne. He's the keeper of a sacred flame, the guardian of a love story that ended in tragedy, a son who refused to let his mother be forgotten. Every move he makes resonates with millions who remember where they were when they heard the news, who cried for a woman they never met, who felt the monarchy's response was inadequate, cold, inhuman. Now, through William, they have a chance for vindication, for validation, for the acknowledgement that their grief mattered, that Diana mattered, that love and truth matter more than crowns and protocol. The final gambit. As the story unfolds, one question haunts the halls of power. How far is William willing to go? The answer, according to those who know him best, is simple: as far as necessary. There are whispers of a nuclear option. If Charles continues to support Camilla, if the institution refuses to bend, William might do the unthinkable: step aside from the succession, not permanently, not as abdication, but as a statement, a declaration that he cannot serve a monarchy that dishonors his mother's memory, that he'll wait outside the institution until it's ready for the changes he demands. It would be the ultimate power play, explains a constitutional expert. By threatening to leave, he'd force the monarchy to choose evolution or extinction. Because a British monarchy without William, after everything, it wouldn't survive. The beauty of this nuclear option is that William wouldn't need to follow through. The threat itself would be enough, because everyone knows the monarchy needs William more than William needs a monarchy. He's young, he's popular, he has Diana's halo and his own dignity. He could build a life outside the palace walls. As a philanthropist, a statesman, a global figure for positive change. The monarchy, it would wither without him. Charles knows this. Camilla knows this. The entire institution knows this, which is why, despite all the protocol and tradition and resistance, smart money says William will win. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, inevitably, the future king will reshape the crown in his mother's image, the revolution's legacy. So here we stand, witnessing history in real time. A revolution conducted not with armies, but with guest lists. Not with violence, but with values. Not with hatred, but with love so fierce it's waited nearly 3 decades for justice. William's war isn't really against Camilla. She's just the most visible symbol of an institution that failed his mother. His true enemy is the system itself. The cold protocols, the inhuman traditions, the elevation of appearance over authenticity that crushed Diana's spirit long before that Paris tunnel. By excluding Camilla from Diana's sacred spaces, William sent a message that echoes through every palace corridor. The old ways are dying. The future belongs to those who remember, And some betrayals, no matter how much time passes, can never be forgiven. But perhaps the most profound aspect of this revolution is what it says about love. A son's love for his mother, a love that survived her death, that grew stronger with passing years, that transformed from grief into power. William proves that love isn't just an emotion. It's a force that can reshape institutions, rewrite histories, and revolutionize kingdoms. As we wait to see what happens next, one thing is certain: the monarchy will never be the same. William has ensured that, whether through small exclusions or grand gestures, through documentaries or constitutional crises, he's fighting a war for his mother's memory, and he's winning. The boy who walked behind a coffin has become the man who will remake the crown. The prince who couldn't save his mother has become the king who will ensure she's never forgotten. This isn't just about the past. It's about the future. A future where the British monarchy either evolves into something worthy of the modern world or fades into irrelevance, where authenticity matters more than antiquity, where Diana's values, compassion, service, truth, finally triumph over the cold traditions that killed her. The revolution has begun. The battle lines are drawn. And at the center of it all stands William, calm in his certainty, fierce in his purpose, unstoppable in his determination to honor the mother he lost and the values she died believing in. Long live the revolution. Long live Diana's memory. And long live the future king, who refused to let either be forgotten. Share your thoughts below. Because of this story, it's far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. The crown will never be the same. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what Diana would have wanted.